being here. I am so excited that, let's see, tonight we have Alina Rubin with us, and I cannot wait to talk to her. Some of you met her last summer, and you're going to get to see her again tonight. And then for some of you, you haven't gotten to meet her yet. So this is a special treat. So, Alina, we're just going to dive in, and I want you to just kind of remind everybody of who you are and tell us a little bit about the book that you'll be giving away. And if you can, share like a favorite scene or line or character or some favorite of yours from your book.
Sure. So hi everybody, my name is Alina Rubin. I am from Chicago area. So Joe and I met when we both entered the soon to be famous author project in our states. And so Joy won in Louisiana and I won in Illinois, and Joy came over to Chicago area to the ALA convention. So that was awesome. I write historical fiction, and it's based in 19th century, and it's about strong women. I have a series about a young woman who is a surgeon, and then I took a minor character from that series and made her my protagonist, and that's how I arrived to Abigail's song. So Abigail, if you are reading this book, she is an orphan and she's been adopted by a Jewish family. There's a lot of conflict of the heart, her musical growth, her like kind of her career and her faith. Like she has to make decisions about whether she wants to stay Christian like her parents were, or adopt the Jewish faith with her newfound family. Favorite scene. So I always wanted to play piano, and I started playing when I was 26, kind of trying. It was very hard to learn at that age. So when I was doing my first recital, I realized that the piano in the library is very different than the one that I practiced on. And so I was able to put that into the scene where Abigail is playing a concert for the first time, and she did not expect to play a concert. She came to audition with her brother. She thought she'll be somewhere in the room, just in front of maybe two people, and suddenly she's in a room full of guests, and they're supposed to play this concert. So she's completely unprepared, and so I have her struggle exactly how I struggled during the recital. So I think that was my favorite scene to write, because I was able to put in like my own musical experience into it.
That's wonderful. And you could feel the angst and the fear of that moment.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That is so great. Your book is wonderful. I love all of your books. I think I've read all of them at this point, and you have so many different aspects to them. So I'm curious, what do you love most about writing historical fiction? And what's been the most surprising fact you've uncovered in your research so far?
So I think I love historical fiction probably for the same reason everybody who reads the genre. It's like you get swept away into that time story. Like it's just that setting of that I enjoy. Like I watch historical movies, and I go like, oh, this is where I see myself. Like this is what I'm drawn to. A lot more than a spaceship or some kind of futuristic or even I used to read a lot of fantasy. Somehow the genre just, I don't know, just doesn't draw me anymore. And so just when stories come to my head, they're usually set in somewhere in history. Um, and what I think I do find, like I always come up with my own character, but I do like to find nuggets about real people, kind of as a confirmation. Then yeah, people have done it. Yeah, there was a woman who dressed up as a man and she became a doctor. Yeah, there were women who went on ships, and they made some in secret, some not, but it did some amazing things. I learned that there were women pirates. Yeah, so I think that's what I enjoyed, that when I do find interesting people from history, and I usually, it's not that I make them part of the story usually, but I put them in historical notes, but they're kind of an inspiration that they have done something similar to what my character did.
I love that. And research is just such a beautiful thing. And have you ever found, like, as you're researching, you end up thinking about a million other story ideas just based on the research you're doing, and you have to pull yourself back in?
So interesting. I feel like a lot of people do that. Like they go to a museum, they go to some archive, and they are looking for stories. And then they get a zillion of these, and there's like, well, how's it all gonna fit into one book? I'm kind of the reverse. I come up with a story, I'm plotting, and then I'm thinking like, so what research do I need to really figure out how that actually worked? So my research, I even just pulled up a few books that I read. Like, they're not that exciting. The Royal Navy and England Jewelry. It's it's kind of a dry reading. Or for
See, I'm excited
Abigail,
by it.
or this one, like this is actually was a huge help for Abigail. Foreigners, alien citizens, Medway and Jewish communities. So Medway is Chatham and Rochester. So this is like exactly what I needed. Basically, the history of Jews in those two cities. And I had the story already figured out. I just needed to kind of confirm: is this what the Jews did? Is this how they lived? Where was the synagogue? Where was was there mikvah, or where did they buy meat? Where did they go to market? So this was kind of helpful, just to really to bring the town, because for the first time I chose to base the story in the real town. I needed to find out how the town functioned at the time. uh, so and so then I'm kind of in reverse. I'm writing my own story, and then I'm looking for, okay, what book is going to help me.
Great. So that kind of leads perfectly into my next question. So in Abigail's song, we meet Abigail, of course. She is a young girl who was raised Christian, but was taken in by a Jewish family. So having one foot in each faith, so to speak, at a time when lines were very firmly drawn, that plays a pivotal role in her character arc. Was this choice inspired by research, personal experience, or was it kind of a combination of both?
So I think I so when Abigail kind of came up kind of on her own from A Girl with a Knife. So she was a young character, an orphan. I wanted, something good to happen to her after she gets well, after Ella treats her. So I thought, okay, maybe Ali's family is going to take her in. And all we knew about Ali is that his family is Jewish, and he was not telling that to anybody in A Girl with a Knife. Only in the end, he, has to tell it's a secret, because the Jews were not allowed in the university. And I was just kind of wondering, well, what is going to be her life? And could I write maybe a story? Maybe it'll be a reader magnet. I kept challenging myself that I need to write some kind of a reader magnet, because I think a lot of writers know that's a very good marketing tool. Basically, some kind of a short story that I can make it available for free, and the readers will take it and sign up for my newsletter. I knew that I needed something like that. My editor kept telling me that I need something like that, and I was like, but I just wrote a novel. How I, where am I going to find time and energy to write a short story? So it was like about a month after Girl, with a Knife. I'm like, okay, I'll just gonna explore ideas. So I like this little girl. She, maybe I'll just write a story. How a little more focused on her, how she's in the hospital, how maybe she has to go to the orphanage, how Ali makes his decision of taking him to his family, and we meet her family. And so that took like 8-10 chapters. And I was like, am I done, or should I just continue with this, because this is getting fun? And I just kind of went with the story, and I think I liked the idea, like the arc of converting. I remember, like, I know this is gonna strange. Sex in the City. If you watch that show, Charlotte converts to Judas, and I remember I loved that storyline. I was watching it very, with a lot of attention. I'm like, maybe I can do that. And then I voiced this idea like in front of my writing group, and somebody said, yes, but that you shouldn't leave her that. She should not just become Jewish. Maybe it's some, she should explore. Then later she says, no, I'm both Christian and Jewish. That would complete the arc. I'm like, oh, you're right. So, it's more just given, like, this was not supposed to be a novel. It was supposed to be a short story, but it expanded in the full novel. And especially when I realized, oh, there's a conflict between Jews and Christians. And that's something, especially growing up in Ukraine, I kind of experienced in that country. There was a lot of tension about that, on that, probably more than, when I came to United States. And So I just kind of went with it, and then I realized, oh, but there's more things to talk about in this book, so maybe it's a series. And it's kind of, I'm like, okay, I have Hearts and Sales, but I can also have Hearts and Harmony, and with continuing Abigail's story.
That's perfect because I wanted to ask you about the two series. So you have Hearts and Sales and
Mhm.
Hearts and Harmony.
Right.
So share with us the differences and the similarities between the two and what your plans are for each.
So interesting. So when I brought Hearts and Harmony Abigail to my editor, she kind of said, but you're writing about strong women, like Ella, she becomes a doctor, what's, Abigail, she doesn't seem that kind of a woman. I'm like, well, let's think about it. She's strong in a different way. She can, if Ella kind of climbs a mountain, Abigail climbs herself out of a deep hole. And in the end, just getting stability, just getting some kind of a good life is already a big thing for her. And maybe in next book she can go higher. But just getting, strength of kind of surviving and just getting out of a deep trouble that, whether it happened to you or you kind of dug yourself, that's also a big deal. So they're different. Abigail came from poverty, Ella came from riches, but the strength in a different way. Abigail's gentle, Ella is very strong and bold. Uh, and I like that I'm writing about two professions that I'm enjoying. I'm like researching a doctor, a medical profession, that how people had to deal with medicine in the 19th century, and I enjoy research about music. So I think for my next book, I'm going to look at opera singers and musicians, kind of as inspiration. What kind of to see what could possibly Abigail do, with her career, and take that as part of her journey. And I'm thinking maybe there'll be more things like there's some characters who were actors. Maybe I could have hearts on stage as well. And as far as number of books, so right now I think I have in my mind, so Abigail, two books, like Abigail's song, and then maybe if she goes into opera or something like that, maybe it'll be Abigail's aria. And Ella, I'm working on book 3 right now. I'm pretty sure I'll have book 4 and maybe book 5. So Hearts and Sales will definitely be a larger series. The way I'm feeling about it.
I am so excited to hear all of that. And I think, isn't that so much fun as authors to be able to research different professions that we may never get to do, but because we get to research it the way that we do, it's just so much fun.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And I was actually just writing like a article for a historical fiction craft book, and it was about strong women. I was like, if a strong woman usually has a profession, she's not gonna just sit around doing nothing. So please choose a profession that's interesting to you. So because if you're not that interested, probably you will not describe it well, and people will not get interested either.
That's great advice. Oh, yeah, because you spent a lot of time on that. So, does your main character, Abigail, showcase any of your qualities or characteristics? And I'm also curious if Ella does too. I'm throwing this one at you, but I'm curious if there are any things in Ella that are more like you than in Abigail.
Think Ella is more like me, but she's kind of the better version of me. She's like a little bolder, a little stronger. And once in a while, I ask myself, like, if Ella were in my situation, like, would she go for this? Would she do this? It kind of makes me do a lot of things and go for things. So, that I feel like, oh, I don't think I want to do. Abigail's a little shy and timid. I think she's gonna grow from that. But that's part of her arc. Her childhood is just so difficult, and it takes time for her to overcome all the issues. So I I think that besides that scene, well, this in the scene when she's playing piano, that I definitely feel feel her, because she was in that situation. But also I remember how good it felt when I actually played that piece, and she kind of had that triumph as well, through that concert.
That's awesome. And so now I do have a couple of other questions for Alina, but I'm going to hold on to those for a few minutes so I can get y'all's questions. And Faith has got one for us. So she says, I know the series are intertwined, but which set of stories do you like better?
Interesting, because we all love our
I
stories.
know.
I almost feel like Abigail, because Ella is kind of better known already, and I definitely, is sold better. She's already getting an audiobook, and Abigail is kind of hidden, and not as many people know her. So right now I'm kind of in my underdog's corner. So right now Abigail is my favorite child because she's struggling a little bit, and definitely needs more reviews. So if you're reading, please leave a review.
Yes. Oh, that is so huge. I think when we talked to Jan, I think that was mentioned, and maybe with Cassie as well. But yeah, such a big deal. That is the best gift you can give to any author, honestly. Is a good review. So, and yes, Faith, it is like picking a favorite child. You got that one right. Oh, so any other questions? Y'all hit her with all of them.
Alina, I'm wondering what drew you to historical fiction? Like what drew, because I also love historical fiction. That's like probably what I'll reach for first out of anything. I'm going into fantasy more now, but historical fiction is my jam. So what is your like what drew you to historical fiction? Is it just that you're a fan of it, or did you feel like because I'm working on a historical fiction right now and it's
Mhm.
harder than I thought it would be. So I'm wondering what are the challenges that you found, like maybe in your research? What are the just talk to me about the historical fiction
Sure.
genre because I love it so much.
So I pretty much believe like in Harry Potter, the one we uses, chooses a wizard. It's like the genres pick the author. I can't even imagine writing another genre. I hope I do. I have some ideas, but it will be so different. It just but I was not a writer for most of my life. I worked in IT, and it's kind of as far as you can get from historical fiction. But it just like I was watching Hornblower, that's a historical fiction miniseries, and I was so drawn to it and the characters. And there was my favorite character who dies in that show. And I'm like, no, I can't have this. I'm so upset. And so I was like, no, he's not gonna die. He's just wounded, and there's gonna be a woman doctor. She's on the ship, and she's gonna save him. And that's how Ella was born. And I kind of went away and started coming up with other stories about him and actually reading the books about which turned out to be very different than the show. And I'm like, oh, there's so much more, material here, but I would have done it like that. And she's gonna save him from prison, which is a book I'm writing now. And so that's kind of how it started, and it just kind of basically like like you get in the world of the series, kind of like it becomes your world, so it's even more engaging like that with writing. And I would say challenges, I feel like a lot of people are kind of scared, like, oh, you gotta get every little single detail right. And sometimes, and yes, for maybe like 5% of readers, that's probably true, but majority just want to hear a great story. So yeah, do your research, but don't let and work with a good editor, work with beta readers who read the genre. They'll probably point things out. Usually, the interesting thing is often the language. Like you think like some expression or some word has been around forever, and people point out, no, that's kind of a recent word. It's like early 20th century, or it's not old enough, or it's not British, or British character would not have used it. But don't let it stop you. Most people just gonna be excited by the story, you know. So
Great.
That's
I'm
awesome. Thank
curious.
you.
Yeah, so those were great answers. I'm
mhm,
curious, talking about the words because I love words, like that just lights me up.
mhm.
But is there a resource that you found that kind of goes into the history that's like an easy search situation rather than having to go to the dictionary? Is there something that's specific to like when words came to be or where they're used or something like that? Or is it just the dictionary the best way?
I actually just Google, because you can like specifically like expression origin, and you can find. But I just learned to stay away from expressions, because even if you think, oh, not a lot of people, oh, that's kind of like this expression is right on, but it's probably cliche. Yeah,
True.
yeah, and so I try to either kind of just say a different way. And again, like pro writing, right, it often gives a suggestions, like it will highlight as a cliche and gives a suggestion to rephrase something. There's a lot of expressions, are either too modern, or people have already heard them a zillion times and it doesn't have an effect on them. Yeah.
Okay, so Rachel, we're at the point where everybody's asking Alina questions, and Faith has another question for you, and that is, how long were you writing before you got published?
So interesting. So I got the idea that I want to start writing on February 26, 2021. February 26, 2022, I was releasing my first book. So, when my editor said you can pick a date in January, I went back to like my diary. I'm like, oh, this is the day I started writing. So I lined them up.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. When you know, right?
Yeah. So it's 1 year. And I actually wrote one manuscript that, was kind of a hodgepodge of ideas. I thought it was a good book, but when I showed that to beta readers, they were like, it's kind of like a bunch of good ideas, but they don't fit together very well. And your main character is already a doctor at the time where women could not be doctors. So maybe you should kind of come up with a better backstory about how she got her medical knowledge. And that was kind of a key, like, oh, and like she needs to go to medical school, but she can't. She'll have to like dress up as a man or something like that. So that's how so I kind of went back and wrote then the girl with a knife. And so basically in that time I got finished 2 manuscripts and but and then went through beta readers and editors with your girl with a knife.
That's awesome. So any other questions for Alina?
I'm sorry, I'm late.
Okay.
I'm curious because I don't know if I've missed it somewhere, but I'm curious about your accent and what other languages you speak.
Okay. Yeah, I was born in Ukraine, or at the time it was Soviet Union, and I came to the United States in 1991. So I speak Russian fluently and a
Okay,
little Ukrainian.
so two languages or?
So I would say Russian and English fluently, Ukrainian a little bit,
Okay.
and Yiddish and Hebrew a little bit. So if you go song has some Yiddish, which I was like, I'm surprised that I remembered.
That's awesome. Well, I love your accent. It's
Thank you.
wonderful.
Awesome.
When did you come to the United States?
1991. So I was 11 years old.
Okay.
That was like 7th grade.
Yeah.
Was
Did your
that
whole family
hard?
move? Yeah.
Was it hard?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, coming school into middle school probably hard for anybody. But yeah, if you're like just kind of learning English and you're new, yeah, it was very hard. I probably things get better only when like I was in high school. But yeah,
Did you already know some English when you moved here?
I did, but I had no idea how quickly everybody speaks. It was not easy. I mean, I think I could like slowly kind of speak and say like what I need, where I need to go, but to hear it back from other kids, it was like, oh my goodness. Teachers was a little easier because they would slow down, but the kids and all the expression, all the slang, oh my god, what are these kids talking about? And just it was so different. Like here, middle school, you get a schedule, you go to all the different classes, and other kids go to other classes, and you're like, it's not how we get it. We were like all as a group, like all the time, and we were in the one classroom and teachers came to us. So it was very different. Like, where are we supposed to be at this time? And when, and why do I have like, where, just everything was so different from middle school than I expected.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. So you've written your books in English. Are you planning on doing any other languages?
I would need to get a translator at this point. I can read and write in Russian, but to actually write a story, I don't think I could. Or to translate it, just I think it's easier for a professional to do it.
I can understand that.
Yeah, I can go over it and then read and see if she did a good job, but I can see myself trying to get the right words. And plus, languages change too. The words.
That's true.
Yeah, over time, I'm sure that's. The Russian I know has changed as well.
Oh, Lisa, that's cool. She's of Ukrainian descent. How cool is that?
Neat.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Well, I have 2 more questions, and then we probably do still have some more time. So if y'all think of other questions, definitely hang on to them and throw them out there. So in addition to your books, obviously, read and review your books, but in addition to that, how can readers engage with you?
So I love visiting book clubs, and if you don't live in Illinois, I'm happy to zoom in. I have a newsletter, and I publish it every first day of the month. Social media, of course, I'm a lot on Facebook and on Instagram, and I go to author conferences. So if you're not like I usually the ones in Vegas, like 20 books to 50K, Author Nation, historical novel is coming to Vegas. Seems to be so far it's the ones that are in person are in Vegas. So I love, but anyway, I can, if I can engage with you guys, if you have a club and want to talk to me, absolutely, I would love to join in.
That's awesome. And I'm pretty sure if I haven't already shared this week, your link for signing up for your newsletter is going to be there somewhere. It may be tomorrow's post. I can't remember for sure, but I'll definitely need to add that in about the book clubs, because that's something good to know for anybody who may not watch the replay or isn't here tonight. So important. Love book clubs. And then my final question, and I see Faith has got a question here, so we'll get to that one too. What is, and this is something, I don't know why, this just kind of came to my mind, and I wanted to ask each of our authors this particular question. What's one thing about the business of book publishing that readers may be interested to know?
So I think there's a lot of myth about self-publishing, that self-published books are maybe don't have the same quality as traditionally published, which I don't think is true. I mean, there's less gatekeepers in self-publishing, but most of us hire very good editors. Most of us do a lot of work on covers. It's just that instead of a big publishing company or a small publishing company, it's the authors themselves doing a lot of the work, or most of the work. So I actually now have a small business trying to help other self-published authors kind of get through all the logistics. And so that's what I hope to do. That I really enjoy the self-publishing aspect, how we can get our stories out there, that even if a publisher doesn't think they're good, or they doesn't think it's marketable, usually to me it's like, I think everybody can write a great story. It's just like, okay, what's the market? Well, a great story doesn't have to be about the market, or fit for the market. So I think that's where self-publishing comes in, and I want to help people with their any struggles, any confusion they have about how to publish a great self-published book.
That's awesome. I love that. And something that, oh, I was going to say something on that line. Darn it. It just completely left my head. One of those butterfly thoughts, y'all, the ones that just flit and then they don't land and then you lose them. All right. Hopefully it'll come back. If it does, I'll blurt it out. But Faith has a great question. So, have you always loved books, or can you remember a time you got interested in reading?
I think I've always loved books. I probably was maybe 6 or 7 when I picked up Three Musketeers or The Count of Monte Cristo, so like pretty early. And I realized when I was reading those books that I can watch them like a movie in my head. And once I started doing that, like I became an avid reader for the rest of my life. And I think that sometimes shows in my books that I'm like, I have to see the scene like a movie and then I can describe it. Yeah, so I always read a lot. And of course, now as a writer, I read fiction. I read fiction in my genre. To me, like reading outside of my genre is to read. I have to like give myself a schedule, like, okay, I need, yes, I know I need to read this book and that book and do this research and read this craft book and so the newest whatever Amazon ads book, but I also need to give myself the street and read some sci-fi or something else, or some today I bought the Remarkably Bright Creatures. I hear everybody's talking about that book, like about the octopus or something like that. I was like, well, okay, but my next read, that's going to be this reading. So yeah, absolutely love books, love libraries. I think I'm in the library at least once a week. Absolutely. I think before Netflix, before all those movies that we had, we had books, and that was my escape. And that's, I would always be the kid like who is like up late at night and still reading, and parents are like, no, you turn off your light, you're supposed to sleep. And I'm like, no, I need to finish the chapter. There you go.
Relate.
That's great.
Hiding under the blanket with the flashlight.
Guilty.
Do you have like a special writing what's the word I'm looking for? Regimen, I guess, or like ritual that you do when you get sit down to write?
So I wouldn't say ritual. So my morning is like this. I get up early, usually before 6:30 is at the maximum. If 6:30, it's like I overslept. And so kind of get ready. I do a little yoga and maybe a little meditation. something like that. And then I get my coffee in a kind bar, and then I start writing.
Nice.
or writing, editing, whatever it is. And if it's school time, I have to stop at 7 because at 7 I need to take my daughter to school. Right now, summer, it's wonderful. I can just like write and write till like it's 10 or 11. So my daughter finds me and says that she needs breakfast. Although she's 12, she can make her own breakfast. But, yeah.
Is that about how long you usually write, until about 11?
Yeah, especially
And
like
then-
that's. So again, I used when I had my full-time job, and I only quit it this February 26th again. That magic date. When I had my job, I had to like get her to school, and then started my work till like from probably 8 to 4. I was like that at my work computer, and then so I would have a little time in the morning, a little time in the evening, lots of try to as much as I can to pack into the weekend to write. Since leaving my job, I usually write till 11, with a break or without. In afternoons, usually, I have some clients that I'm now helping, or I'm looking at webinars or doing some research, doing something for marketing. Usually there's a list of tasks I need to accomplish to make some posts or newsletter or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, you're muted, Rachel.
Speaking, but you're muted.
Sorry about that. I was wondering if I would be one of the people that did that. So it's like, that's the interesting thing about being an author. I think in general, everybody has like tasks that have to be done at certain times, or just that need to be done throughout the course of the day. And that's not something that's necessarily exclusive to self-publishing or traditional publishing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something that we all have in common, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yay, Terry made it. So Terry, we have like 7 minutes left, and there's plenty of time to ask questions to Alina.
Well, I don't know what ones she's already answered other than mine.
Yeah. Well, we can ask that one again, because I did not ask her that again. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, go for it.
All right. Well, one of my questions was about misperceptions that Americans have about her childhood in Russia.
Okay, yeah, I think I said that. So I feel like in American movies, it's always winter in Russia. Like this is like you look at Dr. Zhivago, or like it's always winter. So when I told one my teachers that back in Ukraine that we used to own a boat, they were like, "Isn't the river frozen? Like, when did you have summer to use it?" But actually, Kiev, where we lived, it's kind of climate kind of like Chicago. It's definitely we had a summer, definitely spring and more temperate. Here it seems like spring just goes like this, like one moment it's cold and it's hot. We had a like actual spring where you can see all the season kind of changing more slowly. And so there's a lot of climates, a lot of places. Most people don't want to live in a very cold place. Kind of like in Alaska in the United States, we have all that land, but I don't know a lot of people from Alaska.
Right. Yeah. I think Americans forget how big Russia is.
Mm-hmm.
And, that it crosses so many longitude and latitude lines that it would have a lot of different climates. And they probably just don't realize how many lakes and rivers and things you have too in that much land.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then I also asked about your childhood writings and even readings, what your favorite genres were.
Mm-hmm. So reading, I think, but like Jules Verne and Dumas, like Three Musketeers. So it was like what we called a foreign historic literature. That was my genre, and we didn't have it. It was not easy to get. It was not widely available, but I absolutely loved it. I guess I feel like it's what I'm writing now, but with female characters. So it's adventurous. There's always some kind of fighting. There's a lot of people rescuing each other, but unlike Jules Verne, like I haven't, have the main female characters to it. Because that's what I always kind of feel like, okay, well, all these guys are great. Like, why can't we have a woman who can fence or ride a horse or, shoot, or do something good? As a kid, I wrote poetry. I have no idea how I used to do it. I can't do it anymore. But it's where like these poems would just come into my head, and I would just sit down and write them. And I read all kinds of things, but yes, but especially this historical fiction. And I've been reading. I think been reading for a very long time. I learned as as a little kid, but I think since age 6 I was an avid reader and always had a talking about the having a book late at night. When parents told you to turn the lights off, I still wanted to read.
So Faith had another question about the writing aspect. So do you have a favorite snack or drink while you are writing, part of your ritual that seems to make writing easier, other than your kind bar, but do you have some other things?
No, it has to be the kind bar, and it has to be coffee. So, and it's interesting, I don't let myself drink coffee at any other part of the day. So coffee is just when I'm writing. So if I feel like coffee, I better be writing, or I should be drinking tea or something else. And it's actually a trick which I learned from one class about how to be productive, is like training yourself to have some special things that you only get when you're writing. So I like to play like sounds of the rain. That's my writing sound. And so yeah, coffee and my favorite bar, and those things I only get when I'm writing. So it's another motivation to make sure that I'm doing some writing.
That's
Yes,
so
coffee
great.
is caffeine, because I started like 6 a.m. Oh,
That's
and
true.
I actually don't write late at night. Late at night, I may read if I'm up, but by 10 o'clock, I'm so sleepy. But if I'm not, I'm usually reading at 10, at 9 or 10. But yeah, writing is my morning activity. Once, if I'm ambitious in the afternoon, but never past 8 o'clock.
Any other questions for Alina? All right. Well, Alina, thank you so much for being here with us this week. And she will be giving away a copy of Abigail's song, and I'll announce that winner on Saturday. So be sure that you guys go back if you haven't, make sure you comment on this week's post if you haven't had a chance to yet. Check out her website, subscribe to her newsletter. If you've got a book club, you know who to call. And yeah, anything else that I've forgotten?
I think got everything.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for being here tonight. This has been so much fun.
Thank you so much. Oh, great pleasure meeting all of you.
Thank
I really loved
you.
all this post all week.
Yes, it's been great. And so many great questions. Y'all are amazing with that. I love it. All right, everybody have a wonderful night, and I'll see you in the Facebook group.